Hi everyone, it's Laurie. I've been away for a little while, but I'm glad to say I'm back filming a video response to a tarot tag that has been going around, hashtag 22 faves. Like many of you, I found it really difficult to pick my 22 favorites. And for the Fool, I did choose two cards. I chose the Smith-Waite Centennial. And it's just because for me, this sort of shows what the Fool is, you know, aesthetically. He's ready to step off the cliff with his little dog, and his eyes are looking up to the sky, heavenward, and he's holding his white rose and all his earthly belongings in a bag, ready to set off. And he doesn't even know where he's going, but he's going to go anyway. My second choice for the Fool is from the Raven's Prophecy Tarot. And the Fool here is one of the characters from the Raven Cycle books. She's the main character, Blue, and I think she just completely embraces what it feels like to be the Fool, ready to step out. Next up is the Magician. I chose both cards from the Stretch Tarot. The Stretch Tarot is an indie deck, and right now it's actually on sale for £20. So here we have two different depictions. The Magician as an archetype. You have a person who's masterfully kind of using their tools, using all of their gifts. And we see this in the male card, I think. There he is. He's got, you know, the cards in his hand and he's kind of waving them. He's going to be doing a magic trick. You also inherently have this feeling of chaos or wild magic that the magician could be capable of. It isn't tame. It's not controlled. There aren't necessarily written rules that are governed by anyone, other than perhaps the laws of nature and the magician himself, and sometimes the magician can perhaps even transcend the laws of nature. And you have that level of shadow inherent, I think, in a magician card, and we see that depicted here with the magician's shadow. I mean, I think his shadow is almost the thing that stands out even more than the magician himself. In the card with the woman magician, there's a dark kind of shadowy bit of the black flowers that are along the bottom of the card, but she's showing her hand. She's holding two cards, and if she was playing blackjack or 21, she would have 21. So she would have a winning hand, and she's showing her hand. So we see that, you know, she's got the tools, she's got what it is to win, and she's showing them, and she's very much not afraid to show them. You know, the male magician, we see his shadow. He's looking at the cards. He's not looking at us. But the female magician is very much looking at us, almost, I don't know, challenging us to look back at her. And we can see her thoughts. They're written all over her neck and all over the top of her chest. So I think this is just a really amazing two-part depiction of the magician. And I suppose you're supposed to use whichever one you want, but I think they kind of work together in a really interesting way. Next is the High Priestess card. This is from the GAAN Tarot. I like what was written in the guidebook about this particular card. The woman as depicted here in the card is kind of both crone and maiden. It's clear that she holds the secrets of knowledge, like the High Priestess is supposed to. The curtain of leaves that's behind her, on the crone side, the leaves are very much covering everything, so she's hiding those things. And on the maiden side, the leaves are see-through. You can see through them. They're sparse. And she's revealing on that side, so she is both protecting the wisdom and sharing the wisdom at the very same time. Okay, next up is the Empress card. And again, I chose two. The Empress from the Dark Goddess Tarot, who is, in this case, the Black Madonna. She's just like the whole package in this particular Empress, because she's very much a ruler. She's a mother, she's a protector, she's royal. You can see that all the gold that's around her, and she's up on a pedestal. I love the blue sky behind her, the blue night sky that has the stars all over it. It reminds me of the Egyptian goddess, I believe it's Nut, whose body is the sky and the stars, and you know, she herself is the sky. The second card I picked was from the Animal Wisdom Tarot. Sorry, the Empress here is depicted as the cow, as the Earth Mother, and she's very much a source of life. She's creating. She looks like she's pregnant in this. Very grounded, very earthy and warm and welcoming. And I like how these two cards kind of together show the Empress as both the sky above the earth, and in the cow, she's kind of like the earth herself. Okay, next up is number 4, the Emperor. And the first time I went through my cards, I didn't have an Emperor that I liked at all. Between the first time I went through the cards and now, I've since received a new tarot deck, which is the Vision Quest. I really love the Emperor, the way he is depicted in this as a grandfather, and wise, and he looks kind, and you know, he looks like he's in charge, obviously. He's got quite a war bonnet on, and he has a village behind him that he's obviously the ruler and the protector of the grandfather of the tribe, but I think he seems just sort of very kind as well, and that, I suppose, was missing for me in a lot of the Emperor cards. And the second card I chose was from the Pagan Otherworlds. He just looks like an emperor who is formidable. Okay, next up is the Hierophant. I picked the Aquarian Tarot, which is my go-to. I find it interesting how this particular Hierophant is very formal. He's cloaked in about a million layers. The only thing that you actually see is just his face. You really can't get to him. You know, he kind of bequeaths it to you as he chooses to. He's not someone who can be approached. I mean, even you can see sort of down at the bottom, he's got these jagged things. Don't get any closer. And then the second card I chose was the teacher card from the GAAN Tarot. And I totally love this teacher. She's approachable. She's got the coyote there in the back. And so she teaches you by nature. She teaches you by coyote wisdom, which is like taking rabbit trails. I had to pick a third one too. And the third card I picked was the Hierophant from the Raven's Prophecy again. It shows the Hierophant as very much the source of light, but the Hierophant shares the light. And you can see with the little fireflies, this is the Hierophant sharing the light with his or her students, and those students are going off as their own little balls of light. Is the Lover's card, and I chose from the Pagan Otherworlds. In a Lover's card, there are a couple of things that are kind of important for me to see, and I like to see the duality of the higher and lower nature needing to choose where to act from our higher selves or to act from our lower selves. We are fully our lower natures, you know, our shadow selves. We are fully that, 100%, that's who we are. But we are also fully our higher natures, and being able to kind of have that realization when we discover this. That's what the Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden story is about. It's about that moment of realizing that, wow, we can do good or we can do bad, and kind of no one can stop us. Or we can think good thoughts or we can think bad thoughts, and nobody can stop us. You know, and when children are growing up, they hit that at about age 8, 9 years old, something like that, where they have this moment. And my eldest daughter has talked about it before, where she had this moment when she realized that she could tell a lie and no one would know if she was lying or not. And that the moment that she realized that I couldn't read minds, you know, that I as her mother couldn't read her mind, or that I couldn't as her mother see through walls and know what she was doing. And before that, it seemed like I could. And she remembers distinctly that moment that she could be as bad as she wanted to be, and if no one saw her, she might not get caught. And sort of both the kind of the thrill of that, and then at the same time sort of that overwhelming responsible feeling of that is just such a human moment. And it's really a gift, I think, that she's able to remember that, because I bet most of us aren't able to remember that exact moment that we had enlightenment of that kind. And our ability to make a choice. And I think you do see this very much in this card. She's got an apple in her hand. You know, is she going to eat it? Don't eat it. There's the snake, that was sort of temptation. The man is holding that torch, and it kind of shows, you know, he's very fiery, he feels very passionate. At the same time, you know, we see that, you know, he's feeling very passionate and holding on to the woman that he loves, and she's clinging to him with her arms around his neck. He's looking at her, but she's kind of looking away. We need somebody to cling to. And so we need to know that we're not alone in this world. Next is the Chariot card. This happens to be my birth card. So I chose, again, from the Centennial. But the second Chariot that I chose is from the Magical Goddess Tarot. And you just see so much motion in this card. I mean, those horses are like ready to go. They are snorting steam out their nostrils, and she's ready to go. She looks ready for battle, and she's got all her weapons and her armor's on, and her hair is flying out behind her. Goodness, obviously, is her motive. You know, we were already in the garden with the Lover's card, where we had to choose our higher self versus our lower self. And so she's harnessed her will, and you can tell that she has, because she's got that glowing gold kind of halo behind her. I was kind of thinking about what, to me, the Strength card looks like. It's the Everyday Witch Tarot. I do like this Strength card. We see the witch standing there, and she's got a lion walking alongside her, and she's kind of scratching him under the chin. He's not really like a lion. He's more like a kitten. If you notice her wand, she is using her wand to control the tornado just by the power of her magic. And the second one I chose was from the OSHO Zen Tarot, where we see a daisy grown in a rock wall and now is blooming. You know, it didn't just stay alive in that rock wall. Well, all other living things did not stay alive in that wall, but it thrived in, you know, a very inhospitable place. The key word that's on here too is courage, and I think that's the strength card in the Major Arcana as an archetype feels like survive and thrive in very inhospitable conditions. And this is the Hermit from the Wild Unknown. I love this little turtle with his lamp on his shell, and he's got his house with him wherever he goes. He has all he needs. When he needs to go home, he just pulls his legs and head and tail in, and he's home inside his shell. Whether he's out there or in there, his light is shining all the time. The second card I picked is the Hermit from the Raven's Prophecy. In the stories, there's an old hollow tree. So this is the lantern that's inside the old hollow tree. But what's interesting is how much it looks like the lamp of the Hierophant. And, you know, the Hierophant taught all of his students, and the students kind of went off like their own little lights. And then we perhaps see this Hierophant at some point becoming the Hermit, going away by himself, and his lamp is still lit, the light is still there, and if necessary, his students can find him, but he's just kind of taking his time there to go inside, learn some new things. I kind of like the dual imagery there. Okay, so next up is the Wheel of Fortune. I didn't realize how many of the Raven's Prophecy I chose until just now. So the first one I picked was from the Morgan Greer. I realized it looks a little bit like Monty Python with this mysterious hand of fate that's turning the wheel. I like the depiction here of what goes up must come down, what goes around comes around. You know, you reap what you sow sort of thing. It's the little karma of life. And the other card is from the Raven's Prophecy. And I kind of like, because this sort of seems to show the wheel of the year, the idea of little karma, that, yeah, what goes around comes around, but that also means you always get another chance. If you made up your mind and it's not working, you can change it. Change your mind and do something different. And if that doesn't work, you can change it and do something different again. It can be something that's not scary at all, but something that we really embrace. Okay, so next up is the Justice card. And for this, I picked the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery and the Mythical Goddess, kind of to represent two different sort of things, like above and below justice. I think in the Sevenfold Mystery card, I really like the fact that this is not justice by brute force, and it's not like might makes right. It's the kind of justice that has to answer to reason. So we see reason there, and she's got her scales, and she's, you know, actually holding on to that sort of justice, reminding us that justice answers to reason, or real justice should always answer to reason. At least here on earth, that's what it looks like. And then the Mythical Goddess, we have the Crow Woman. She is justice in the great void. So she is the justice of the spirit world. And it made me think about when people get away with things, or people that think they've gotten away with it. But look at the Crow Woman. I mean, she can see everything because she can see you everywhere. She's, you know, in the moon. The moon can see you everywhere. The crows can fly. There's no place that you can hide. So you can never, ever really get away with it. And she will be the one to exact justice in the spirit world, which is cool. Next up is the Hanged Man. And for the first card, I chose the Tarot of the Cat People. This particular man in this card really reminds me of Siddhartha, the prince who became the Buddha. He like intends to be doing this. So he either tied himself there, or, you know, had someone tie him there with very, very neat, very tidy little knots for a purpose. You can see that he's a man of means. He's got that beautiful blue kind of tunic on and a gold belt, and he looks like he may have silver or diamond earrings. So he's a person of means. He doesn't really need to be doing this. And also he's already enlightened. because you can see he's got that halo around his head. He does not need to be hanging upside down. He's doing it as a choice because he is seeking a new perspective. You can tell that because he's got his eyes open. And I love his little cat who's like, I'm just going to hang out with you, Dad. While you're upside down, I'm going to sit on your foot. The second one I picked was the Hanged Man from the Pagan Otherworlds. Kind of represents that concept of the hanged man as sacrifice, as a person who sacrifices himself for his beliefs, or is sacrificed because of being different. The way this is painted, this particular card, I mean, it jumped out immediately to me because it looks like the famous paintings of Saint Sebastian with his head at that funny angle, all tied to a tree. Well, even the way the loincloth is wrapped around his waist. Saint Sebastian was a secret follower of Jesus in the early Christian church, and he lived under Roman rule, and he did a lot of good deeds. And he was not allowed to be a Jesus follower at the time. He was turned over to the authorities, to the archers actually, and they tied him to a tree, and they shot him full of arrows. And he's kind of the unofficial patron saint of homosexuality as well, which kind of adds to that whole concept of having a perspective that challenges the status quo. You know, that's where he is. You know, he already has that different perspective. A very powerful card. Next up is the Death card. I actually had about 7 or 8 different Death cards that I really liked. It was hard to narrow it down, but I picked 3. The LINESTRIDER and the Stretch Tarot and the Dark Goddess. I mean, I just picked these purely on the beauty of each of these cards. Have the skull, which is, you know, unmistakably death, the skeleton, and flowers growing in some way out of that death. And they're just gorgeous cards. I just love them. Next are the Temperance cards. I chose the Temperance card from the Wild Unknown, and again from the gorgeous Stretch Tarot. So, you know, I was just thinking about the Temperance card in general. The word temperance usually means like moderation. I think kind of what we're looking at with the Temperance card is more along the lines of when you temper something, when something is tempered, like they temper steel or glass or chocolate, like tempered chocolate. And the way that you do it is by heating it and cooling it over and over and over again. And by going through that tempering process, it makes whatever it is different and yet the same. So like when you temper steel, it's specifically to do it so that it strengthens the steels, so it becomes stronger, but also it becomes more elastic. And so I like the depiction in the Wild Unknown with this stork, and she's got both water and fire. So she's doing the heating and the cooling process. And the stork also made me think of the Norman decks, where the stork usually means movement of some kind, and, you know, happening, stuff is gonna happen. So you've got that heating and you've got the cooling, and then you've got stuff is going to happen. So I kind of like the way that's depicted in Temperance. It's very different from balance or something like that, or moderation. In the Stretch Tarot, we're basically looking at, you've got this woman and she's got these dragonfly wings. I'm full of useless trivia today, but the cool thing about dragonflies metamorphose, but they do not do a complete metamorphosis like a butterfly does. Dragonflies only do a partial or an incomplete metamorphosis. So like, you know how a butterfly has a life cycle, and dragonflies have a life cycle. They lay eggs in water, and you can kind of see that at the bottom of this card where it looks like she's standing in water. When the eggs hatch, the dragonfly becomes a nymph. And that's like another name for, you know, a very gorgeous young woman. And she's like a nymph right there, which I thought was really awesome. And then the dragonfly molts or sheds its skin, and that's when it gets its wings, and that's when it becomes the dragonfly. And she actually looks like she's pulling off this very diaphanous scarf and maybe, you know, shedding her skin or molting in a way. I don't know. I just thought that was really neat. And it made me think of that, of the movement and of the change that can happen when we are tempered, where we are not what we were before, but we're not completely different. We're the same, but we're different, if that makes any sense. And there's a musical sheet behind it. It says prelude at the top. I have no idea what music that is, but it's a prelude to something. And a prelude is not the main event. It's the thing before the main event, right? So it's that little bit of music that's played before the big thing happens. And so the change that we have happening here in Temperance, I think, maybe isn't the main change. It's the prelude. I don't know. Maybe. What do you think? Okay, next up is the Devil. I chose the tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery. And, you know, Devil here, if you remember, we had Reason. There she is, and it says Reason above her head. And here's the devil, or Satan as he's called, and he's unreason. So this is what happens when like justice goes wrong, or when irrational reasoning goes wrong. Your brain is not working here. In fact, the brain is not even present. Reason is not present at all. The will is there, the appetite is there. So the will is kind of like your higher self. That's the way I think of it. The appetite is sort of like your lower self. But then reason, which would be the thing to step in and sort of moderate those two things and decide when we engage in higher self behavior, lower self behavior, or walk that middle road, whatever it is completely absent from the devil card. The lower self wins, and the poor will is completely a slave to appetite, and neither one of them are even happy. The other card I picked was from the LINESTRIDER. They're tied together. The woman and man both have, you know, their hands over their faces. They're just in total torment. But the man looks like his hands are free, so he can get out at any time. They have the power. They have the strength and the elasticity, like from being tempered in the last card. They have that power of metamorphosis. They just need to untie it, you know. But sometimes that power of metamorphosis doesn't come from within, because, you know, the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak, or whatever. Sometimes that power of metamorphosis has to come from the outside, from some kind of like a tower moment. Okay, so next up is the Tower. There isn't one single Tower card that kind of expresses all of the ways that I personally will have experienced Tower moments in my life. So the first one is the Pagan Otherworlds. I'm going to try to move it. So this is the Tower card from the Pagan Otherworlds, and she's like, boom, right? Boom, you did not see it coming. And she is thrown out of the tower. And if you survive the fall, you are never going to get back in that tower, even if you wanted to. There is no going back to that tower. And we see that a lot. I think that's probably the most common tower image that we have. You're just completely launched right out of that tower by a strike of lightning. You never saw it coming, and you're not going back, and everything's different. Nothing's going to be the same again. But I don't know. I don't think that's the only way we can experience tower moments. So the second one is from the Stretch Tarot. In this, there are three ladies, and they've got their hands or a piece of paper or something over their faces because they are not looking. Behind them, the tower is on fire, and they are in total denial. They're going to have the same outcome. It's not going to be a good one. They're going to be out of that tower on the outside, and they're not going to be able to get back in, but it's going to be longer, and it's going to be a little bit more painful because they're in denial and they're refusing to see it. And I think the third kind of tower moment that I personally have experienced anyway, in the beautiful tarot of the Sweet Twilight, you see the tower exploding from the lightning from the sky, and you see the girl and her teddy bear are up in the tree because they saw the tower moment coming. They couldn't stop it, because there's times that you see those things coming, tower moments. They're not always a surprise. They don't always catch you completely by surprise, boom, nor do they kind of creep up on you, making a lot of noise while you're looking the other way, being in denial. I can't see anything, nothing bad is happening, I'm in denial. Sometimes you see it coming, and there's still nothing you can do about it. You can't stop it, but you can make plans, and in this case, the girl and her teddy bear went up a tree. I mean, now they're up a tree, so that's a thing. You know, they're still not getting back in the tower. They still have to find a way to get down, but they weren't in the tower. They weren't thrown from the tower. They saw it coming, and they did make plans. It's still a tower moment for them, and it's very different being this person than being that person. I'm not saying one is necessarily better. It's just, they're just different tower moments, okay? And the fourth card that I picked is from the Everyday Witch Tarot. I'm going to put it there. You can see the tower, and you can see it's gone down in a heap. And there's the witch. You can see that she's holding a wand almost behind her back, like she doesn't want anybody to see it. And the tip of that wand is still crackling. So I think it's pretty fair to say that she caused the tower to fall. It was still a pretty catastrophic collapse. I mean, she's not going back in that tower if that was hers. Maybe she was Rapunzel and she was trapped in it and she got out and she destroyed it so she could never be put up there again. But sometimes you are the person, in my experience, who is the agent of that enormous change. Sometimes it's necessary to knock everything down and start all over again. Okay, next up we have the Star. I chose the Smith-Waite Centennial. I love almost everything about this Star card. She's naked, she's not afraid. So she's had her tower moment and she hasn't got anything left but she's okay. You know, she has wisdom, spiritual wisdom that is coming down to her from the universe, from those stars. She's sharing that wisdom that she has learned, both in spirit ways, putting it back into the universe by dumping the water into the pool, and also in mundane ways by dumping the water onto the earth. She's not alone back in that tree. There's a bird back there. The only thing that would make this better, I think, is if the sky was darker so that it was night, because I think it's kind of important that it's night when this happens. Anyway, and the second star that I chose is from the Aquarian Tarot. I like this peacock. It's so pretty. It's beautiful. And even though it's nothing at all like the other star card, it's going through its own dark clouds there. You know, it's got its own stuff to get through. One of the things that I found kind of interesting in this is, if you notice, there are these kind of sharp designs. Do you remember that they were the same designs that we saw in the Hierophant? That kind of keeps the student or keeps someone from approaching the Hierophant, because he's got the keys, but he's also got this very spiky fortress sort of defense. And we see this fortressy sort of defense up in the star, and that's where the peacock is going, you know, toward that star. But there is still some level of knowledge or wisdom that is still spiky. It's still protected. You know, the peacock, he's going to have to go through, peacocks, I think this is probably a male peacock, he's going to have to go through this long kind of cavern or canyon and through all the smoke and kind of dark clouds to get to that star, and the star is still sort of shrouded in mystery a little bit. So there's still some level of things being veiled or things being hidden. Okay, next up is the moon, and I chose the Tarot of the Sheep. And the idea of kind of walking that edge between fantasy and reality, and kind of knowing how to walk it and how to be in both worlds. The woman is here, and she's walked this path, and she's looking down into the stream, and it's reflecting a completely different reality from the reality that is currently outside her. So you see, in the reality that she's seeing, she's not human. I don't know if she's human in this one, but you know, you see her as a fae, and it's daylight and the sun is coming out and the leaves are on the trees and the sky is blue. And then here, in her experienced reality, oh, sorry for the glare, it's still quite dark and a bit dismal and scary, having the knowledge of both of those things. Okay, so next up we've got the sun. I think in all the videos I've watched, I don't think there's anyone who's shown the naked baby on a horse as being their favorite depiction. It's not mine either. I mean, I understand the symbolism. It isn't becoming a baby. It's, you know, being like a child. Because a baby, obviously, a little baby that small, that's maybe a 16-month-old baby, something like that, naked, on a horse, you know, holding a flag. It couldn't even do it. So it's not like a realistic go be a baby and ride naked on a horse. It's not realistic. It's about being like a child. I love the sun card in the GAAN Tarot, because that's exactly what it looks like to be a naked baby on a horse. You know, she's dancing. She's got the red flag or the red scarf, just like the naked baby does, and she's under her own power, and she's dancing in the sun with her sunflowers, and she doesn't care who sees her, and she's got her fantastic little red ballet flats on. And she's just gloriously happy, and she's an older woman. She's not a baby, but she has the joy of childhood inside her, and total freedom to do whatever she wants to do. And in the Osho Zen, I love this wise, aged man, and a little praying mantis lands on his finger, and the keyword there is innocence, because the expression on his face is just one of pure delight, like a child. And I think that's what the sun card feels like. Okay, next up is the Judgment card. The Judgment card from the Tarot Mucha. And no one likes this card. I understand why nobody likes the card. The angel's really, really creepy, and it doesn't look like a good thing to be called. And you know what? Following your calling is scary. You know, there's the young man with the red hair, and he's standing up, and he wants to go. And there's someone clinging to him, begging him not to go. Because some people don't want you to follow your calling. Some people want to stop you. It's not easy to follow your calling when something calls you. In fact, there are people that will never do it because they're just going to die instead. They're just ready to, they will lay down and die instead of following their calling. The second one I picked was Tarot of the Cats. They call it, in this deck, they call it rejuvenation. Some people are going to do it. And we see the woman here breaking out of like a kind of an egg or a pod of some kind. She's totally ready to heed her calling. And her cat is coming with her. And in the little bubbles behind the cat, here, see there's like little bubbles? There are 8 of them. So that means this is the cat's. The cat is being reborn as well, and this is his 9th life. He's almost done. He's almost there. Maybe this is her last one too. And the final card for this particular, for Judgment, is from the Everyday Witch. And we see this young witch here, and she's completely dancing to her own tune, and she is all in. And she's just going to go wherever her calling takes her. Okay, last of all, we have the World card, number 21, from Pagan Otherworlds. This is my favorite card in the whole deck. She is completely grounded, strong muscular-looking legs and strong feet, and they're planted very firmly there on the earth, so she's very, very well grounded. She's got her wand, and she's got her wings. She's got the laurel wreath on her head, so she's the victor, and her eyes are turned toward heaven. The second one I chose for this is from Vision Quest Tarot. I think the World card is sort of the big karma. Especially if we compare that to card number 10, the small medicine wheel, which is small karma. This is kind of like the everyday, what goes around comes around. And this is the big wheel. This is the big karma. The Fool. Okay, because I wanted to show the Fool alongside this particular World card. Both of them have a very similar stance with their eyes up toward heaven. And they are ready to go around again, like we see here in this Seeker card from the Pagan Otherworlds, which is called the Seeker, going from this world into the next. That's it. Those are my 22 favorites. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.